This is Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. You are watching Sporting Icons. You don't need to be anywhere else.
Right, so one of the most reoccurring questions I get asked all the time is about sanctioning bodies, and it's a huge topic, and there's no real way to actually answer it. Of course, what people are getting at is, do we need them? What can be done about them? People will refer to the UFC model, and we're going to talk about so much stuff that, to be honest with you, it's quite difficult to even know where to start with and where to end with it. So I've got a feeling it's going to be quite a long video. So for those of you who like to listen to my videos at night time, you're probably going to enjoy this one as you fall asleep, or if you're a long distance lorry driver or whatever, because there's going to be a lot of things to talk about in this one. Because yet again, today I get asked a question of my thoughts, by Richard, by the way, over on Twitter, so big up to you. My thoughts on boxing news no longer recognising the sanctioning bodies. But again, I mean, if we were to start off from that particular point, them not recognising the sanctioning bodies, I mean, firstly, what's that going to accomplish? Okay, because when you look at their publications, they will talk about Anthony Joshua and call him the #1 heavyweight in the world. They talk about Tyson Fury, the #2 heavyweight in the world. And again, why do they do that? Well, because Joshua is a unified champion. When they're speaking about, say, Jamel Charlo, their publication about Jamel Charlo and Brian Castano this past weekend, of course, they don't talk about it being undisputed. They will say the #1 and the #2 super welterweights and things like that. But why do you call them the #1, the #2? Because they're a champion of sanctioning bodies. If, for example, Charlo and Castano didn't have a belt and just had a fight anyway, would they have in their publication the #1 versus the #2 in the super welterweight division? Probably not. So even though they're saying that they don't recognise the sanctioning bodies, of course they call them like the alphabet titles, I understand why, but you are still using the model. Are Charlo and Castano the best two in the super welterweight division? Most people will probably say yes, because they're the champions. If they weren't the champions, would you call them that? Probably not. So there's so many different ways of looking at it. Now, I know people, for the most part, will say, okay, let me put it this way. If I was to put out the question, should we get rid of the sanctioning bodies? Most people go, yeah, just get rid of them. Follow the UFC model. Now, it's very plain and simple to just say that without really looking at the consequences of it as well. And there are some consequences to it. But of course, there are some pros to it as well. Now, if you used to look at, say, the UFC model, of course, they have like one, and it's governed by one president, if you like, Dana White. Of course, he's got other people and all around him. And even to a point, he's probably answerable to somebody. But ultimately, that was a company. It's a relatively new company. Boxing's been around since way before anybody here was alive. Okay, it's been going on forever. In fact, Boxing News has been established since 1909. So that will tell you how long boxing, even in the publications, has been about. Okay. So it's very difficult to say, right, okay, let's just put boxing under one umbrella. Okay, who is that umbrella? Who controls that umbrella? Who's the chairman? Who's the chairman of the board? Who's the CEO? Who? Now, to get that kind of person to oversee all of it, you have to have the agreement of the majority of people in boxing. That isn't going to happen. As much as, say, Eddie Hearn, he may complain about referees and judges and the commissions, as much as Bob Arum will do the same, Frank Warren will do the same, Al Heyman, if we ever heard him speak, will probably do the same. But of course, his sidekicks like Leonard Elby will do it, and Kathy Duver has done it, and Oscar De La Hoya does it, and the list goes on and on. Well, who are they going to collectively agree to run boxing? Who? Because it can't be any of those people that I've just mentioned. Could Eddie Hearn run boxing? In his mind, yes. But would the other people agree to him doing it? No. Because again, he's going to be biased. Everybody has their own agenda in boxing. So it's very difficult to appoint somebody. Very difficult. And whoever it is that is appointed and agreed upon by the majority of people who have a relationship with that person. In other words, pull in some favours when needed. So even though maybe you can get rid of the sanctioning bodies, and of course we talk about the main four, WBC, WBA, IBF and WBO. Of course there are other ones, the IBO. Of course you've got the different sanctioning bodies throughout the world. You've got the European Commission, you've got even the British Box Board of Control and all the other commissions throughout the United States. There's several of those in Canada, in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, and all over the place. There's so many different ones. Everybody has to fall under that umbrella. The umbrella of, okay, even if you got rid of the sanctioning bodies, well, that one umbrella is basically going to be a corruptible one, isn't it? It's going to do certain things. And of course, that's too much work for one body anyway. And it's not like the WBC, WBO, IBF, and WBO are going to come together and have the 4 presidents run boxing. That's not a good idea at all, is it? Boxing's a business. That's predominantly why boxing exists. It's a business. And again, if you had, say, one governing body and disbanded all the other sanctioning bodies, so what's the answer for that one? Okay, so there'd be one belt throughout each weight division. Maybe you can cut down the weight division, change them up a bit or whatever. Okay, but whoever's the champion of, say, okay, let's look at the heavyweight division. So let's just say Anthony Joshua is the champion of this one sanctioning body. Okay, then who is he going to be defending that belt against? Well, it's not like he can have a voluntary, is it? Because there's so many people chomping at the bit to try and get that opportunity to become the champion of the heavyweight division. Well, who gets the opportunity? Who comes up with the rankings? Because again, rankings, let's be honest, for the most part, are subjective, are they not? Of course they are. Who's going to be his #1 challenger? Is he going to be okay with being ordered to say, right, okay, Joshua, we believe that Tyson Fury is #2. You're going to fight him. Okay, so now you fought Tyson Fury, you beat Tyson Fury. Now we think you should fight Dillian Whyte. Now we think you should fight Deontay Wilder. Now we think you should fight Andy Ruiz Jr. again. Now we think you should... What champion's going to want to do that? It just creates a huge, huge mess. But at the same time, if you want to be champion, that's kind of the route that you have to go down if there was one sanctioning body. But for me, again, it's just my opinion, I don't think that all the sanctioning bodies should be disbanded. I think they should be answerable. I think there should be a overall governing person or persons. I think there should be. But again, who do you appoint? It's a vicious circle. Because whoever's going to be on that commission of the lead is always going to be somebody of friends. That's how they're going to get the job in the first place. It's not like I could just come out and say, right, Sporting Icons is now going to run boxing. Well, are the majority of people in boxing going to vote for me? No. Do you know why? Because I don't have the relationship with Eddie Hearn, so he's not going to vote for me. I don't have the relationship with Bob Arum or Frank Warren or Oscar De La Hoya and Al Heyman for them to vote for me. So what authority do I have to say, right, Mauricio Sulaimán, you're going to listen to me. Gilberto Mendoza, you're going to listen to me. And so forth. It's just not going to happen. For me, whoever gets that job is probably going to be more corruptible than any of the rest. So it is going to be a vicious circle. But at the same time, I can certainly agree that whoever runs boxing, the one authority that runs boxing, they should be dealing and pointing out, because that's pretty much what the boxing fans want. I don't think boxing fans are against having, say, 4 major sanctioning bodies plus the Ring magazine. I don't think that they're necessarily against that. They're against the rankings, that it's rankings with benefits, really, isn't it? It's wrong that a boxing promoter and a manager has to go to conventions to petition that their fighters get ranked on a certain position. That fighters get ranked by the fact that they've been paying a sanctioning fee. That kind of thing is garbage. That should not be happening. A relationship with a sanctioning body and a promoter or manager should be virtually non-existent. There should be no friendship. It should be run as a business. That's how it should be run as. For example, Bob Arum and Frank Warren, they have an outstanding relationship with the WBO. Look at their fighters and tell me I'm lying. The PBC have an outstanding relationship currently with the WBA. Look at the rankings, tell me I'm lying. And formerly with the WBC, even to a point still maybe the WBC. It only really seems to be the IBF that doesn't really have a relationship with any one boxing promoter. That seems to be the way. But again, are they doing favours? They have a good relationship with, say, Dennis Hobson and a couple of other smaller horse show ones. Again, you can see that by the rankings, because they have some pretty obscure names in their rankings that people, for the most part, don't really know who they are. But the point is, they all need to be held accountable. So for example, you can look at, say, some recent events. You can look at, say, the WBO and say, okay, so now you've got your mandatory Alexander Usyk taking on Anthony Joshua. But now you've just said Joe Joyce is going to be the next mandatory. Based on what? Where's your final eliminator? Joe Joyce hasn't had a final eliminator. So why have you done that? We could look at the WBC and say, well, it's one thing for the WBO to just jump with their mandatories. WBC, what's taking you so damn long? Why is Dillian Whyte not yours? What's going on with yours? You could look at, say, the British Boxing Board of Control, for example, with their referees, with their judging, with the fact that they could do something absolutely ludicrous. And it's not just them specifically, and it's happening with many commissions, which is your judges, your referees, they're all under your banner, but yet you don't hold them accountable. If there seems to be a judge who scores it way different to, say, the other two, well, what are you doing about that? There should be a punishable offence, whether it be a fine, and keep on doing it over and over again. Eventually, you're going to have to be suspended or expelled from the boxing authority, if you like. Same with the sanctioning bodies. WBA, what is up with your damn rankings? There is clearly a bias when it comes to Premier Boxing Champions. What is that? Why do you have a Trevor Bryan as your regular champion? And why do you have a super champion? Why do you have a gold champion? Why do you have a European champion, international champion, all kinds of intercontinental champion? Why have you got so many damn belts? What are you doing about it? Dish out fines. Everybody should be following the same letter of the law. But each sanctioning body has its own rules that they go by. Even to the extent of the percentage that a champion can give a challenger, such as a mandatory. The sanctioning bodies, for the most part, while they're quite close on certain things, even their own percentages that they will give a mandatory is different to each other. It shouldn't be different. They should all be the damn same. In some circumstances, a WBO mandatory can actually get 40% of the purse. The WBC will have, say, 25%. And it's up to their discretion as to whether or not they give, say, a 40% to the mandatory, like they were giving to Tyson Fury originally, when they originally ordered him to fight Wilder, which, of course, that fight never actually turned out. Of course, we're talking about the rematch before the rematch actually happened. So they can come up with their own rules. Why is it that on, say, some Canelo Alvarez fights, you've always seemed to have a rogue judge? Why is that? Who's accountable to that? The WBC, they work with, say, for example, again, I'm using the WBC as an example. Okay, they will put on a fight, say, Fury Wilder Part 3. Firstly, the question has to be asked, why have you allowed this to happen for a third time? Why? Why is nobody... Because while you're allowing this to happen for a third time, other people are not getting a world title shot. You're holding off other people. You're prolonging it. But, for example, their fight is going to be in Las Vegas. They will hand over to the Las Vegas... So I should say the authority, which is the Nevada State Athletic Commission. It'll be up to them to appoint the judge. It's up to them to appoint the gloves. It's up to them to appoint the judges, the referees, and all these other kind of things. Okay, well, if there's something going on wrong there, well, what are the WBC going to do about it? They're going to do absolutely nothing about it. What the WBC do when so many fighters get tested positive for PEDs, they will give a pass for some and throw the book at others. And it's usually the ones that they give a pass to because they're Mexican. Why? Mauricio Sullivan's Mexican. You see, this is what I'm getting at. So you do need an authority, but somebody who's going to be stern and stand by the rules. Somebody who doesn't have a relationship with the WBC, the WBA, the IBF and the WBO, or the Ring Magazine or whatever. Somebody who doesn't have a relationship with them needs to be the authority. But they also need to not have a relationship with Eddie Hearn and Al Heyman and Bob Arum and Frank Warren and so forth and so forth. Because, again, if there's one authority, they need to be punishing the sanctioning bodies with ultimately expulsion. That way, I think, yes, the sanctioning bodies will pull their socks up and make better decisions on things. Because at the minute, they can do whatever they like. And that's the problem with boxing. They can do whatever they like. And people say how if boxing follows the the criteria of the UFC. But the UFC don't have anywhere near the amount of participants as boxing does. Not even close to it. So it's a totally different model. It really is. It's not like Dana White can go into boxing and just control boxing the way that he does UFC. He can't do that. Firstly, no one's going to allow him to do that. You're going to have to be voted in. Are the sanctioning bodies going to vote for him to do that? No. Are the promoters going to allow him to do that? No. Of course not. Again, he's going to be favoritism. He's going to show some favoritism because already, even though he's not directly involved in boxing, he does have a pretty good relationship with, say, Al Heyman. He's got a good relationship with Eddie Hearn. But he hates Bob Arum. So again, not exactly a good kind of person to do that for, even though I agree with his business ethic. I agree with the way that he runs his company, from what it is I know about it, of course. But it's a very, very difficult question to answer, because I think that you do need sanctioning bodies because fighters need something to work toward. If there's only one champion, there's a lot of fighters there, and you can say, well, oh, well, fight each other. Okay, but if you're holding that number one position, are you going to go on and fight number two? Oh, you get ordered to. Okay, what about number 3 and number 4 and number 5 and number 6? And you say, okay, we'll fight each other. By the time you actually get around, because essentially you're running a full-time tournament, a tournament that will never end. That's pretty much what it's going to be. Well, who's the champion actually fight? Where does it start from? Who is going to be the champion? For me, yes, I think that sanctioning bodies are necessary, but they certainly need governing. They need to be punished. They need to be rewarded with good things as well. We can criticise the WBC with their favoritism, with the fact that they have good relationships with, say, fighters. They have a very good relationship with, say, Deontay Wilder and currently now Tyson Fury. They shouldn't have any relationship with them. None whatsoever. I don't like the fact that I'm hearing Mauricio Sulaimán say, oh, well, Deontay Wilder's my friend. Oh, Dillian White's my friend. Tyson Fury's my friend. They shouldn't be your friends. This is the problem. When there's friendships, there's bias. There shouldn't be any of that. When you talk about the IBF and the WBO, you don't really hear their presidents speak. But you've got Mauricio Sulaimán always out there in front of the camera. All the time. These little exhibition fights as well, putting on their little trinket titles, creating their Cinco de Mayo belts, creating their diamond belts. It's getting beyond a joke. It's getting beyond a joke. But who is going to do that? Who? You have to get the majority of the boxing world involved. And it's not to you and me to do that, and that's unfortunate. Well, it kind of is, but it's going to take something pretty significant. Pretty significant to even get that ball even rolling, because the only way that we can actually do it is by stop watching boxing. And I mean everybody. Try and convince the boxing world to stop watching boxing. You ain't going to do it. People are like, oh, jog on. There's nobody out there that's actually going to do it. Are all the fighters suddenly going to go, okay, I'm going to give up my world titles. I'm going to give up my position. I want to give up my ranking position. I'm no longer going to pay sanction fee. Okay, cool. You do that. Joshua, you do that. Dillian White, you do that. Fury, you do that. Wilder, you do that. Ruiz? No, I ain't going to do that. WBC, here you go. Here's my sanction fee. You can make me champion. Cool. We go right way down the list. Ruiz says no. Bacoli says no. Michael Hunter, what about you? Nah, you're right. I want to be champion. I like WBC. I like WBA. So, while you can certainly reduce the power of the sanctioning bodies by the fighters doing that, the fighters ain't going to do that. But you do need fighters to do that. You need Canelo, you need Joshua, you need Fury, you need White, you need Wilder, you need the Charlos, you need all the big names in the sport to go, we are no longer paying a sanction fee. We are no longer going to be fighting and defending your world titles. But you know what? They ain't going to do it. Now, really, there's only really 2 people who could do it, and their career will continue to flourish. Canelo and Joshua. With or without belts, people are going to buy their pay-per-views. People are going to turn up to the arena, the stadiums. People are still going to do it. So if they did it, that will be a start. Are they going to do it? Probably not, because their promoters, for example, well, I suppose that there's only really one promoter for both of them at the minute, isn't it? Which is Eddie Hearn when it comes to Joshua and Canelo. He doesn't want to distance himself from the sanctioning bodies. Because if Joshua did that and Canelo did that, well, they could punish Eddie Hearn by removing all his fighters. Then it's going to have that snowball effect, isn't it? Then potentially you could end up creating what the PBC have been threatening to do for quite some time, which is create their own in-house belt. Do you not think Matchroom have thought about doing that? Of course they have. Just do in-house fights. Fight for the Matchroom belt, whatever belt it is that they're going to call it. The DAZN belt, I don't know. They've all thought about it, but who's brave enough to make that decision? Because trust me, if the PBC done it, the rest will follow. Why do you think the WBA are ranking so many PBC fighters? Why do you think that is? Because they're scared of the PBC doing it. Why do you think the WBC are kissing their backsides? Especially in stateside, because they want a stateside champion. They're perfectly okay with Tyson Fury being their heavyweight champion because he fights stateside. They love the fact that Canelo is their champion as well, which is why they made him a franchise champion. Again, this kind of stuff has to stop. But ultimately, you know, people can point towards the UFC thing, but for boxing to do what the UFC have done, you pretty much have to tear the whole building down of boxing and rebuild it. And that isn't going to be rebuilt probably in my lifetime or many of your lifetime. It's going to take many, many years to get there. It really is. And boxing will probably become like an underground sport. If there's no commission, for example. So if you just bin off, say, the WBC, WBA, IBF and WBO, well, what do you do about the Ring Magazine? What do you do about the IBO? What do you do about the boxing authorities, such as the British Box Board of Control? What do you do about the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the California State Athletic Commission? What do you do about the commissions throughout the world? What do you do about them? Because you can't just stop at the 4 major sanctioning bodies. Because even if you disband them, well, who's going to take over? Well, there's going to be, say, a California State Athletic Commission title. There's going to be a Nevada State Athletic Commission title. There's already a British Box Board of Control title. And they create their English titles and their area titles and whatever else. They will just take over. Imagine the United States of America, where they've got, say, for example, several different state commissions. Damn motorbike outside. They've got like so many different commissions. There could be so many different belts. Now, are you okay with a PBC belt? Premier Boxing Champions belt? Are you okay with a Matchroom belt? If you are, that means PBC and Matchroom ain't going to fight each other. Under no circumstances are they going to fight each other. It's in-house fights only. That's the only way it's going to be. So to just put a blank statement out, yeah, just get rid of them, stuff them. Well, that's just being a human rebel, okay? It's in all of us. Yeah, just get rid of them. But if you really think about it, there's actually... Getting rid of them could probably do more harm than good. It really can. But yeah, certainly there should be an overall sanctioning body. They should be held accountable for many of the things that they do and don't do as well. But let me go back to the question. Who could run it? Who would get voted? Because I'll tell you right now, the person who gets voted is voted for a reason. Because they're probably just as corruptible as these sanctioning bodies. Where they can be bent for favours. Where they can be paid to rank and put certain pressure on the other sanctioning bodies and other promoters, for example. You need somebody who can be totally neutral in the whole thing. Good luck trying to find somebody who can, firstly, petition to run boxing, to get enough people and the eyes and ears to do that. That's going to be the hardest part. But second of all, trying to get everybody to agree to it, as in the majority. And actually make the step up, say, you know what? We want that one overall governing body to oversee the rest. If you don't, then we're not going to fight for these belts anymore. You won't get your sanctioning fees. Is Eddie Hearn going to give a thumbs up to that? Is Al Heyman, is Bob Arum and Frank Warren and Oscar De La Hoya and Kathy Duver and many, many others, are they going to do that? Are the British Box Board of Control going to give the thumbs up to that? I doubt it. I doubt it, because nobody wants an external source looking into their personal business, because at the minute, the British Box Board of Control don't answer to anyone. The WBC, the IBF don't answer to anyone, nor do the WBO and the WBA and the IBO, and they don't answer to anybody. Do you really think that they want to be governed? No, of course not. Of course not. So it's a very, very complex question, very, very complex answer, I should say, for a very, very standard question. But I understand what Boxing News are doing, that's for sure. And I stand by them. I think that the sanctioning bodies do need to be held accountable. But the sanctioning bodies care what Boxing News say. It doesn't matter how long they've been around. Nope. You know why they don't care? Because the fighters don't give a damn. That's why. Because the promoters don't give a damn. The managers don't give a damn. They're going to continue paying the sanction fees. That's all they care about. They care about the green. That's what they care about. They care about the underhand money. That's what they care about. They care about their people being treated to the highest standard. They care about seeing their brand, for example, WBC, their brand in a world title fight. That's what they care about. If you've got somebody governing them, they ain't going to be happy about that, are they? And they're not going to be happy about that at all. Anyway, I hope I made some kind of sense in this video. I don't know. Anyway, drop your thoughts below about it. Click thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.